Grade 11. So welcome to the next lesson. So we're focusing on production planning. The previous lesson we focused on the systems, the mass production, the batch, the job production system. You have to understand the characteristics, the disadvantages and the advantages. You have to be able to identify it from certain scenarios. So I trust that you'll be able to do that. Please take note of what is expected of you of the exam guidelines. I have not included it in these slideshows in order that you have to go and check what it is and ensure that you make your notes accordingly. I don't want you just write down everything, but I want you to summarize according to the exam outcomes. Okay. So let's look at this example that we used in the previous lesson was about the manufacturing. We know it's a process, input, outputs, and here we can see in a car assembly or car manufacturing environment, we've got a vehicle that's being assembled. There's different stages, different places, and the vehicle will pass through either on a conveyor belt or a moving belt to the finish point or the last assembly point. At that point it will be a completed or a finished product which will be then stored ready for delivery to the customer. So that's your system. That's what happens. It's the physical production. But in order to have that, for that to happen, we need to plan. Okay. Someone once said, if you fail to plan, you will plan to fail. So we'll be looking at your planning, the different stages, and the control steps in that. So let's look at the planning, the production planning. In the production planning, there's 4 steps. So production planning is when you sit and you plan out what production method you'll be using, what system, how you're gonna use it, the setup, how you're gonna do your machines, the layout, at what pace do you want to run, how much do you want to achieve, and that's where you'll see if what is possible, if not. Okay, so let's start with the first one, planning. Planning refers to the planning of each aspect of the overall process. So you need to understand how each aspect fits in the overall process. So from the warehouse, when you have to put up a warehouse for your manufacturing, you have to understand it's not just building a square with a lot of space. You need to have planned out the space. Where will your receiving entrance be? Where will your exit be of where companies can come and pick up the stock, the finished goods? Where is the storing space? Where is your manufacturing facility? Ideally, it would be brilliant if you have a one line. It will come in at one side, it will be stored, it will be picked from the shelves, it will be produced into a product, and then it will be shelved on the other side ready for collection. So you'll have a straight line. But we don't always get the chance to build a facility according to that. When you start a company, you don't always have the money, so you start small, and thus you have to make work with what you have. So you need to plan each and every step. Okay, this, like I said, it includes a layout of the factory, where you want what. Here you can see in this image, it's just a layout of a building, but if you take a warehouse, there's too much going on. You want a straight line, the straightest possible line that you can achieve. Alright, the more you bend or the more complex it becomes, you just want to have less people touching it, focusing on essentials, doing their part, so that your process is efficient. You don't want to have 3 or 4 people doing the same thing, and you want to save space and costs. Okay, you have to understand the flow of materials through the process. So the materials will come in from the receiving side. You will offload a truck, you will store it in shelves. The shelves will be at a specific location in your warehouse. For example, let's say this is your entrance, it will come in, and this is your receiving bay, you will store it here. This will be your manufacturing facility, so it will go through here. This will be storing, and then for dispatch here, the entrance is for picking up the stock. But you would want it to be in a straight line, so that would not be a good layout. Okay, or for a flow of materials. Here you can see your raw materials come in, you receive it, it goes through a whole process until you have your finished product. Okay, decisions, you need to plan the decisions on what materials to use and how many to purchase. The question is always why. Well, first of all, you can't use certain materials in certain machines. You have to understand the complexity of different materials. You have to understand the quality of product that you want to produce. You need to understand if you need to import all your materials or can you source it locally. And then if it's a local product, you don't need a lot of stock. Why? You can order on a daily or a weekly basis and they can deliver accordingly. But if it's international stock, you'll have to order once a month, for example, and then you need to order in big bulk quantities, which forces you then to have a lot of space to store that stock, and that has got the implication on your cost. So then you have to look at the different budgets, your machines and the manpower that you need, and you need to determine what you will get from it. What's the expected output? So you're going to look at your budget. We talked in the previous video of your cash flow. So your budget, you planned that you want to produce, let's say, 50,000 vehicles. Okay, in that your budget will be, you need to purchase the raw materials or the parts from the different suppliers so that you can assemble the car at different points. So you need to be able to pay your suppliers every time in order to get the parts, in order to produce it, and then you need to have a budget in place or a plan of when you expect to receive your income or your remuneration for the product. Okay, your machines, you need to plan what type of machines. Are you going to use manual labor or machines? Where will you use your robotics? Normally this is for precision work that a robot can do, that you can program. Repetitive tasks are normally programmed into robots doing their work, whereas manpower is more your specialist work, high quality for assembling, for example. Okay, that will influence your output. Then you have to, so in essence, you can say planning will cover all the aspects of a production process, such as layout, based on the optimal flow of material. Okay, that is your key sentence. This includes the decision of purchasing of materials, machinery, and equipment and staffing. Okay, these two sentences summarizes the top, but you need to understand that. Next step is routing. Okay, what do you think when you see routing? I see a picture from A to B to C to D, and you need to stay on course, make the quickest way possible. So let's see. So you need to establish the best and cheapest way to sequence the production process. On the right you see a guy plugging in different cables, looks like Wi-Fi cables, but he's sequencing. If he plugs in the right or the wrong plug at the wrong place, nothing will work. The same with this process. If you plug in the wrong process or put the wrong process in the wrong place, your whole material flow will be messed up, which will cause you a lot of delays and a lot of double work. So let's say from receiving you start immediately with your manufacturing, but there's no place for storage. Your storage is on the other side. That means every time you have to drive with your forklift to drive past the manufacturing site to the storage and back, and then you have to go and pick the stock and drive back. So there's a lot of time waste, a lot of cost involved that you could have saved by just planning or the sequencing or the routing in the right way. Okay, here you can see different apples being eaten in a or how an apple is eaten and how it looks. So this is your process will be, you want to save time and make sure your order is right. And you will immediately see if your order is not right, as in this example, that and how it will influence it. So routing determines your quality and your type of raw materials, the process and sequence, the specification of the final product, and your cost analysis. So we can summarize it. It involves planning the sequence in which production operations will take place. So where will what take place? Where will you assemble this? Where will you manufacture this? Where will this happen? And it must all build on top of each other, okay, in sequence. And it's setting up of the actual route which the materials must follow to save time and cost. Now, one important thing is that after this planning, you have to test it extensively in different circumstances. You have to test it to make sure it can work in any environment, any circumstance with any given variables. Okay, and that's if that's not done properly, you will be halted sooner or later. Scheduling. So scheduling refers to the timing of the production process. If you think of a bus ticket or scheduling of tickets, that means when will the bus arrive at the place, when will the bus depart, so you know exactly when to be at which point. So exactly the same for this manufacturing or the production process. You need to understand where in the production process are we currently at. For example, with the specific cars, you need to understand this batch of cars or this mass lot of cars that we're producing. They are currently in the spray booth. The other batch, they're busy being assembled with the door trimmings. The other, they are in line to get windows. The others are in line to get radios. All following in a straight line, but that's the order. That's the sequence. That's the schedule. Okay. As you can see, what time, where is it, what's the next step. So you'll prioritize certain jobs to say what is the most important, where will I start, and you have to start at the right place, but to make sure you don't miss the most important jobs. So you, like I said, you need to determine which job will have to be completed first before the next one. If you get your order wrong, it's gonna be the harder and double the work to get the same output. Okay, so firstly you have to say which time periods do you need to that needs to be worked out, and then you need to include the preparation of the material. So let's say you want to start. Now the preparation of materials, you have to go and collect it. Where is it? Is it close by? Is it far? Do you need a lot? Do you need just a few? How will you collect it? Do you need a man on a machine like a tow motor? Or do you need to pick the stock up with a forklift? Can it be someone running and quickly get a box? All of that will impact the decision of of your layout especially. Where will it be delivered? What's the process from raw to finished products? And your delivery, where will you store it? So the scheduling involves calculating the time that's required to perform each activity in the manufacturing process. And when planning each activity, you should start and then calculate the time required to complete the whole process. That's very important. You need to understand how long will it take you from start to finish. Okay, so you take one product and you run it through. You time it, you plan it, and say, this car from start to finish will take me 3 days. But in mass production, if I plan this right, that 3 days, I can quickly make sure that the first 3 days, I will not have anything at the end of the line. But after 3 days, every 5 minutes, there will be a new car. So planning is important. If there's no planning, you will have 3 days a new car, 2 days a new car, 1 day a new car, maybe 2 days a new car. Because if your planning is not right, you'll not have the same output. So planning and routing and scheduling is very important. Last one, loading. This involves allocating every person or machine to their specific task. So what's the load on a person? What's the load on the machine? Okay, you can't expect a person that's assembling a specific part to go and fetch his own raw materials. That should be another task. That should be in logistics. So scheduling and according to their task is very important. So this involves planning on who will be responsible for each activity, which is identified during routing. Okay, so when you have identified that, then people will take responsibility and they'll know what is required of them. Now this is linked to the output required to fulfill orders and to prevent the overloading of employees and machines. Okay, so as you can see, planning, routing, and scheduling and loading is your key core functions in this production planning steps. Okay, if you don't follow these, you will sit with a lot of trouble. So take time, take 5 minutes. Okay, write down these planning or these steps: planning, routing, scheduling, and loading. Take 10 minutes, and then you take a product of your choice. Let's say chocolates. You take chocolates and you plan the steps, right? I want you to draw it out. Plan the steps of how your warehouse will look. You're manufacturing a chocolate bar. It can be any chocolate bar, your taste, but I want you to draw as much detail as you can into each of these steps. And I would like to see that, let's say, you're watching this video on Friday, so Monday or the following week, I would like, in the next period, I would like to see some responses. So please make a note. Okay, so let's look at production control. There's 4 steps when you control your production function. Now, why is it important to control that? You've just planned it out. You need to stay as close as possible to that plan. Okay, if you've planned it to the finest detail, you want to stick to the finest detail. Then you'll have an action plan explaining to people what their core function is. They need to stick to that. Why? The more they stick to that, the more efficient they'll be, the more cost saving, the better it will be. Okay, so there's 4 parts to this. The first is dispatching, then it's following up, then it's inspection, then it's correction. So what is production control? It is the controlling of each individual task and action in the production processes, and it shows where each task starts and finishes. So this controls function tells each and every one, what is my task, what do I need to do in this process, and where does it start and where does it end. That's as simple as it is. Okay, you need to understand how does this how is the production controlled. So it says stop, start here, stop here, and what is your task? Okay, it ensures that production takes place according to your production plan. It must make sure that your plan is followed to the core. Okay, ticked off each plan or topic. And it also means supervising the manufacturing activities to ensure that the goods are produced on time and at the lowest possible cost. So you'll have supervisors, you'll have team leaders, and that is to ensure that everything is followed. When you give someone a job and you just leave them unsupervised, they'll find shortcuts to do it. Okay, so there must be supervisors and there must be people who understand it, who have done it, who have the responsibility, and that can actually do it and help correct it if there's a mistake. So let's look at the 4, then this video is also done. Dispatching. So dispatching means we take this action plan or this plan and we turn it into an action. Okay, so it's not just an action now or a plan, it's turned into an action. So this is it starts. Okay, you're testing it, it's a trial, and it's being turned into an action. So who does it give instruction to? It's an instruction on the movement. How do you move the materials? Okay, do I move it with a forklift? Do I move it with can someone just pick up and run with it? Do I need a tow motor, which is almost like a mini train set that you go and pick up boxes, but then you can go to the production line with many items and you drive it, so there's less energy wasted, as well as it's much quicker. So how's your movement of materials? Where's your machinery? Do you need to move your machinery? What happens at the different locations? You need to plan or give instructions so that they will move to the right place at the right time with the right materials. Okay, again, like the marketing mix. It must be at the right time, right place, right quantities, right color, right quality. If that's not there, your quality will suffer. So it starts at, you have to instruct where's the beginning of the process. So the person doing the job needs to start at a specific place. If you spray paint, you can't just start spray painting. You need to first prepare the area. You need to first make sure that it's sanded, it's clean, there's no dust. So you have to specify what is the beginning. Then you have to check to see what the time is that they need to complete this task by, and how much it costs for yourself. Now, you're not going to necessarily tell the worker how much that process cost, but you need to understand how much it costs. Why? You need to understand the total unit cost. And if you can break it down per process, you know what's the total production cost. Does that make sense? Okay. Then you have to check the flow or give instruction of the flow of work according to the routing, and then supervise the process. So there you can see there's a lot of inputs, it's processed, and the output, it looks a lot complicated, and manufacturing, it is a complicated process, but that's why the planning must be to the point. Now you've dispatched, you've started. Now following up, now you look at the different progress of the work. How is it? Is it completed? Is it down the line? What's required? So now you see, okay, it's not done. Why? There's been unplanned issues or problems. You need to stop, sort it out, and update your plan. You need to make changes so that next time when this happens, you're sorted. There's no stoppage. Because if you give a person instructions to follow and there's something that occurs, they will stop immediately. They will not continue. Why? It's not in the instruction. Your instruction should be clear and should allow for different circumstances. Then you should sort out any misunderstanding in terms of the job process requirements. So this person might think his job process requirement says he can do this, but he interprets it in a different way. So you need to clear any misunderstanding. Why? If he does it in a different way than what you specified, and that causes a hindrance, then you need to sort it out. But if his interpretation is right and he does it in an easier, better way, then learn from that. Don't be, that's the one big mistake that companies make, is they want to implement their processes, but they don't want to learn from the guys on the floor that sometimes have got a better, easier, cheaper way. Now, I'm not saying they're always right, but at least listen, evaluate the idea, and give it a go. If it works, it works. Don't reinvent the wheel. Okay. Then it indicates whether the activities are actually happening. They can say they're doing it, but when you are following up, you'll see, are we on track? Is the time followed? Is the process followed? Are we on track? As regards time. Then the third step is inspection. Now you're checking not what? The quality of the process and the final products. And this is by doing legal and regulatory processes, and that's also checked to ensure that the standards are met. Okay, so you've got certain standards to meet, and there's a specific processes to follow to ensure that all the standards are met. So that can be your SABS, South African Bureau for Standards. They will check your manufacturing standards. If it's of the highest quality, there's a lot of different standards. I said in the marketing video, we discussed the topic on halal stamp of approval. All right, that's the way in of preparation of specific types of meat, not just preparation, but the handling from all the different processes and different stages of the preparation. And if you don't comply with each one of them, then you will not be able to export or to reach your target market. Okay, because some will ask for that certification, and that is very important. Last one is correction. Now you've seen all the mistakes. Now you need to make adjustments. Okay, so staffing issues should also be dealt with. Now mostly these are the biggest problems that you'll have. People are the most resistant to change. We've seen that in previous topics. Change is a stressful factor and they don't want to do it. They want to continue with what they've always been doing. Okay, so this is a quick question on how you can answer this. They said discuss aspects that must be considered during production control, for example, dispatching, follow-up, inspection, corrective action. So you can say this dispatching is the start of the process. Where orders or instructions are given on the production activities, how it should happen, what should happen, etc. Following up means you have to compare the output with the planned output, the actual output. So you've got a sheet. What's planned? According to your sheet, you should have produced 10 cars in 20 minutes, but after 20 minutes, only 2 cars are produced. What's wrong? What's your actual output is 2, your plan is 20, so or 10. So which is out of line? Is the plan too high, or is the output or the actual too low? And you need to bridge that gap. Find out what is right, what's the problem, solve it, and see what you can achieve. Remember, this must be realistic. Okay, then it's the process of checking on inspection. So you compare the results to the predetermined standards. That's your quality control step. And then the corrective action means you have to solve a problem. What steps do you take to solve the problem? When you started planning it and when you started actually producing. Okay, and then you will find that when you plan, you won't even think of all the problems. And even if you think of all the problems, something else will happen. So think of every different scenario that you can. But remember, you need to be adaptable. So just that one activity that I want you to do, and then you can also complete the informal activities. I hope this was, I know this is a lot of information, but I hope this was something that you can understand. Thank you.